perfectly possible for Charles to meet his grandkids without Meghan being there. And I'd like Charles to have spent time with his grandchildren alone. And I don't think that Harry and Meghan had to be on royal property. That really sticks in the craw that these incredibly cruel people who have been so obnoxious about the family and so damaging should be back on, royal property at Highgrove House, where Charles does his gardening and where there are all those childhood memories. It's such a reward, and I'm sure that William's not happy about that.
Hi, Kinsey Schofield here. Welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This is where tradition meets truth and nothing is off limits. Helping me tackle the headlines this week is the host of the Mark Dolan Show, Mr. Mark Dolan, and journalist and former Sun royal correspondent Charles Rae. Thank you so much for being here to the both of you. Marky Mark, talk to me about this gorgeous photo of Prince George. It's his 13th birthday. We're seeing so much more of him these days. I think I'm pretty excited that he's going to be king one day.
Well, what we're seeing from William and Catherine, Kinsey, is a masterclass in royal parenting. We know just enough about George, Charlotte, and Louis, and not too much. And when there's a photograph, it's normally a special occasion, such as Christmas or a birthday. And what a special birthday. He's 13 years of age. He's a great looking kid. He's incredibly charming, I'm told, apparently very bright. And of course, starts at Eton in just a couple of months' time in September. And he'll no doubt be a great success there, as was his father.
He looks, in my opinion, just like I know some people say a Spencer, but I think he looks like a Middleton, as well as Prince Louis. They seem so confident in the young man they've raised, and is kind of coming into his own too in some of the videos that we saw of him in the montage.
It's fantastic pictures and fantastic video. It's nice to see. We get little glimpses, every so often, and this was quite a decent glimpse that we got. And the posed picture, the actual portrait of him, was fantastic. I think he's a doppelganger for William anyway. So I think he looks really like the Prince William. And I have to say, he's now 13, and he's already looking his mother in the eye, and she's 5'9". So he's clearly going to take after his father in the height stakes. He's going to easily top the 6 foot mark. And this guy's got everything going for him. I mean, he's good looking, and he does live a pampered lifestyle, as do many royal children. That's not a criticism. That's just that's the way life is.
Observation.
But I think that we're going to see in the future a worthwhile heir to the throne. I'm not suggesting William isn't a worthwhile heir to the throne. He is, but this keeps on going. He's now going to Eton, which was the alma mater of his father and his uncle. So, and it's not far from Windsor. It's not far from Forest Lodge. So he's going to have special weekends, which they call, forgive me, we never had them at my school, which they call exeats, where he is allowed to go home for the weekend. And, he's being looked after as Charlotte and Louis are by both William and Catherine. And I think that's the right way of doing it. And I think as well, the fact that we are seeing images of the children every so often is giving us a nice little glimpse into the family life as well, which is, clearly they're a very loving family and get on very well together. Let's hope it stays like that.
I totally agree with you. Do you think that Charles, do you think that he might have a more difficult time at Eton because of the social media element? Now you've got a bunch of kids running around with smartphones, or will the entire school, similar to the community that they're currently in, respect that he is, in this very vulnerable position and try to protect him? Because we have seen their current community do that.
Well, I don't know how you control a bunch of 13-year-old boys who've got camera phones, it's going to be very, very difficult. I mean, I think he is going to have a few problems at the start because of the fact that he is a prince. He is a royal prince. And there are going to be some boys at that school who'll want to take advantage of that and try and dominate him maybe, or give him a bit of a rough time. But unfortunately, this is a lot of times that kids who go to school have got to face. So he's not going to be facing anything different. Blue blood doesn't mean you've got a barrier around you that protects you all that much. I think he's probably going to handle it very well. His father will have spoken to him about Eton. He'll have been, I'm pretty certain he will have been to Eton to have a look round and see where he's going to stay and everything else. And I suspect that there will probably be at least one or a couple of lads who will be appointed, if you like, as not bodyguards but mentors.
Mentors, yeah.
Yeah, to show him the ropes and everything else till he finds his feet. That's what happened with William and Harry.
You're both right. There will be challenges. Let's not gloss over that. We're in the smartphone era, and although Eton is a strict school, as with many of Britain's prisons, you get privileged items that sneak their way in. So yeah, the guy cannot be anonymous, but there are a couple of things to say. He's not going to be the only VIP at Eton. It's the most famous school in the world, and he will be alongside the children of billionaires, of other princes and kings and queens and sovereigns and diplomats and entrepreneurs and celebrities. Let's not forget, Kinsey, that Eton has gifted the United Kingdom 20 prime ministers. Something like a third of all of our prime ministers have been to Eton.
That's just in the last 4 years.
History. Well, exactly. We love to change it up, We get so bored after 6 months. Let's get someone new in. But the bottom line is that it's a very traditional place. I think that George will have the protection of the teaching staff. He's going to make friends. But here's the other point. If he is bullied a bit, and if life is a little rough, that's not the worst thing in the world, because that is how he's going to gain character, get a thick skin, and prepare for the ultimate job, which is to be the king of the United Kingdom. He's 13 now. He's physically fit. He's tall. He's statuesque. He can look after himself, probably very competitive in sport, and he's going to have to cope.
And let's not forget as well, he also has and will have throughout this period at Eton an armed bodyguard. So beware, lads. Be very aware.
You're not gonna steal his lunch money, are you, Charlie?
Not at all.
Well, I joked about your prime minister, but King Charles did welcome the fourth prime minister during his reign, Andy Burnham, this week. We could go into that, but I have a very different angle here regarding this story. Prince Harry's relationship with Yvette Cooper, who we saw him get really close to over the last few years in an attempt, who was the Home Secretary, in an attempt to overturn Ravik's decision about his security. Yvette Cooper, according to some reporters, also counseling Harry throughout his multiple trips to Ukraine, worked with him on his speech where he challenged President Trump and Putin, allegedly helped him throughout his piece for The New Statesman about anti-Semitism, which mirrored some of what King Charles has said and done in the past, both with Ukraine and the Jewish community. So there were rumblings that this administration, if I can call it that over there, I don't know if there's a different word for it,
we would call it a dumpster fire, or a hot mess would be a better description, I think.
Was it somehow in cahoots with Prince Harry regarding Project Thaw, like to bring Harry back into the fold? So Yvette Cooper is transitioned over to, I believe, Health Secretary, and the Mirror is reporting that he will. This is before Yvette Cooper's transition. The Mirror reported that Harry will lobby the Home Secretary for security, with sources saying he's looking to arrange further meetings with the King to allow him to spend more time with his grandchildren. Now, Shabana Mahmoud was reinstated as Home Secretary this week. And when I looked up her previous interaction with Prince Harry, there was a piece in the Standard from December 2025 that said Harry had successfully written in the past Shabana Mahmood shortly after her appointment and submitted a formal request for a risk assessment to the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, which is overseen by the Home Office. And a source close to the Duke said in October that the Home Office had ordered a threat assessment for the first time since 2020, a new one. This is exactly what he pitched the nastiest fit over before he got to the UK, threatening not to bring his wife and children over to meet his father. So my question to you, Charles, is does Harry have a sympathetic ear in Shabana Mahmood and Burnham's new government? Could he get this security situation overturned and finally get his way now that she's back in that position?
Well, she hasn't moved from that position. I mean, the fact that Burnham's come in, she remains as Home Secretary.
No, it
I
was
don't.
Yvette Cooper that Yvette Cooper was, and now Yvette Cooper's been transitioned, and
No,
Shabbat
no.
Mahmood.
Yvette Cooper wasn't Home Secretary before.
What was she
Yvette,
before?
she was Foreign Secretary.
Oh.
Yvette Cooper was Foreign Secretary. Shaba Mahmood has been Home Secretary for some time, and she retains that title and that role. Now, I don't think she's going to lend a sympathetic ear at all to Harry, at all. And Ravek may well one day decide that he has to have that protection. I don't think he should get it because he's not a working royal. And as I've said on many times, especially to you, Kinsey, as well, that whenever he comes over here, he is protected. He's protected in the sense that he has protection when he stays at, meets his father. He's part and parcel. If he ever stays at Buckingham Palace, he'll be covered by that royal armed protection that the police are there. The only thing he will not have is he will not have a personal protection officer with him, and he shouldn't. I don't want to pay for it. Harry's his own. Well, I don't. Not just me. I'm not the one.
No,
who's
I know what you're saying. You're absolutely right.
We all pay for this, which it's fine to do so. But Harry's using this. I think he's using this in is a blackmail scenario to force Ravik to give him that. And remember, the king does not have a say in any of Ravik's decisions. He can't put forward anything. He has a representative who goes to Ravik and listens to what the conversation's going on, and he reports back to the king. So the king can't suddenly say, "Oh, it's my boy. Please give him an armed bodyguard." That's not the way it works. I mean, as was seen, Harry came over here for the court case for the against the Daily Mail and then Invictus Games. I don't think he had any police protection as such, although I was told it was
improved. I was told it was improved this last trip.
There was not a fully visible police protection. He had his own bodyguards. There were some uniformed officers outside one of the places that he was visiting. But that was two police officers, and as far as I can remember, they weren't even armed.
Yeah.
And when you looked around and you saw the crowd, well, if there was half a dozen people standing outside, I'm being generous.
Yeah.
So Harry stayed here. He said he couldn't bring his wife to London and the kids to London because it was so dangerous. Yeah, he was quite happy to go up to Birmingham, which is a lot more dangerous city than London is in violence. So none of this makes sense. He's going to carry on doing this, but behind that, you've got to remember this is a move. This is a blackmail move.
Well, Mark, to Charles's point, I've already lost the guy's name. The new Home Secretary, Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband is the Foreign Secretary. Would Ed Miliband be sympathetic towards Prince Harry the way Yvette Cooper's been, or has he lost an ally there? Or can Yvette Cooper continue to work with him behind the scenes if that's what's really going on?
Well, it's very interesting what's going on within government. And I think there's a lot in Richard Eden's theory about Operation Thaw and the idea that this left-wing Labour government are friendly to the idea of Harry coming back into the royal fold. And actually, when it comes to who was Home Secretary, I can tell you that you were both right, because Yvette Cooper was Home Secretary, but only for a year, and that was 2024 to 25. Mahmood comes in, and she's got to look at this Ravet case. And it's significant that she remains in post, guys, because now that she hasn't been moved on and stays as Home Secretary, I think that's bad news for Harry, because it's my understanding that the Home Office, as it stands, don't want to grant royal security for exactly the reason that Charlie outlines. Harry is not a frontline serving member of the family. And that return to the UK just a couple of weeks ago called Harry and Meghan's bluff. It proved that they can come to the United Kingdom and they can be in a blacked out SUV and they can go into Highgrove House and they can get around the country in and out perfectly safely. And it completely destroys Harry's argument about having armed cops. You could argue that if he had the blue lights and the helicopters and the police outriders, he'd be more vulnerable.
It would draw attention.
It's telling everyone where you are at all times.
Yeah.
In the meantime, and Charles will tell you this, the UK press are elite level at getting the photo and getting the story and door-stopping people and all the rest of it. The fact that the press were not able to get an image of Meghan or Archie and Lily on their UK return just shows how secure the whole operation was. And can we be clear? Can we just lay it out in black and white, guys? That this desire for royal armed security is not about his safety. I've been told by Di Davis, former head of Royal Protection, and Ken Worf, Diana's bodyguard, your hero, Diana, the man that protected her, Kinsey, they both said it's not about safety. It's about his ego. It's about essentially being the main man, having the entourage. It boils down to this. Harry wants armed security so that when he's in the UK, he's royal. That is the goal. He wants to be royal. He wants to be Prince Harry with a capital P.
Mark's made a very, very valid point. And the fact is that Harry stayed in London and no one revealed where he was staying. I don't think anybody actually found out where he was staying. He wasn't staying at the palace because we know that was quite well documented that he wasn't going to get a room at the palace. I mean, if he ended up staying at the palace, then, you know, job done. But nobody actually said he was staying at a particular hotel or a particular private place. And it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same up in Birmingham. We don't know where he stayed. We assumed he stayed at Althorp. With his uncle Charles Spencer, you know, because he was going to visit Diana's grave, and you know, from Birmingham he met with Meghan and they moved off to Highgrove. Nobody saw them, and you know, if we can't get pictures of Meghan and the kids, you know, there is something that, you know, people want, and that is a picture of Lilibet and Archie, so you can see how they look. We don't know what they look like. Charles,
you are a legend of Fleet Street. Can you give us a ballpark figure of the value of a photograph of Meghan and the kids back in the UK? What would that go for?
Oh, six figures without a shadow. That's
wow.
Meghan's got her cell phone ready to go.
Yeah, but I mean, if you remember when Fergie, the former Duchess of York, got caught out having her toes sucked in Saint-Tropez, those pictures went for £1 million. So you're talking about that sort of level.
Wow.
You're talking about that sort of level of payment, and it depends, you know, in the circumstances of how the pictures were taken, as long as people aren't climbing through undergrowth and all that sort of stuff, because we would print them. But if you get a half decent picture by a freelance photographer, then he's set for life.
But Mark, I feel like that, I don't think it's about privacy for those children. Otherwise, you wouldn't show them at all. No. I think that is what Meghan is trying to create, a price, an unbelievable price for the actual photos. Just like Hilaria Baldwin, Alec Baldwin's wife, talking about how much she got to reveal her child's face in People magazine. Like I never thought it was about this is a woman that's already bought the URLs for her children's names.
Oh, yeah.
I've never thought it was about privacy. I've always thought it was about building hype or mystery around the children so they could ultimately monetize it.
Most definitely. They are now leveraging the kids for clicks, for headlines, to boost their brand, and for money. Why else would you put your kids on Instagram? I got 2 kids, they're grown up. They're not on my social media. I'm not incentivized in any way to share images of my children with the public. Why are Harry and Meghan doing it? Particularly when Harry writes in Spare how awful it was being in a goldfish bowl as a prince, and the glare of publicity, the gilded cage. And yet here we go again. So obviously it's about money. And what's happening, I think, with Archie and Lily is they're being brought front and center into the Sussex brand. They've been referenced when it comes to their charity work and Archwell Philanthropies, which, by the way, changes its name every 10 minutes because that's another hot mess.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Instagram presence. And it's not. Please don't say, oh, well, this is hypocrisy because you're praising the photograph of Prince George on his 13th birthday. The clue is in 13th birthday. We've got Harry and Meghan releasing images of Archie and Lily when they go to Disneyland, when it's Halloween, you name it.
When we have a new product, we're trying to promote.
Bingo. But I will say one thing, just to perhaps contradict you, Kinsey, because I hear where you're coming from about the value of official photos of Archie and Lily and building expectation. But I suspect, and I want to ask both of you, do you not think that actually Meghan will be disappointed that she didn't get a photo, that she couldn't have that mic drop moment of I'm back?
Let me tell you what I think is going to happen. I think that right before 48 hours around Catherine's Christmas Carol concert this holiday season, Meghan is going to release her family Christmas card, and it will be the children at Highgrove with Grandpa Charles. That's what I think.
Oh, you think they're going to have a photo which is ready to drop at Christmas?
Yes, to distract from Catherine's Christmas Carol concert. I think that Meghan will release a picture of the children at Highgrove. Whether Charles is in it or not, I don't know. But I think that the holiday photo will be the children at Highgrove.
That's quite a call, Kinsey. And it would be a betrayal of what was supposed to have happened, that there was no pictures taken. But I think Mark's right that Meghan particularly would have loved to have some publicity and would have loved to have had a picture of her, the kids, Harry, the King, and the Queen, because she was at the meeting as well. I mean, that for her is worth its weight in gold. Worth its weight in gold.
Well, if we get to it, we'll go back to the Oprah Winfrey story, but Mark brought up Project Thaw, and I think that that's a much more compelling story for us to debate. The story that was published in the Daily Mail over the weekend, Harry never wanted to be estranged, but he was madly in love. Now the veil is lifting. Inside, the plan to reverse Megxit has, as you can imagine, stirred the pot. They are saying in the Daily Mail that Prince Harry is not really feeling the love in the States, is not as smitten with the American dream as he initially thought he would be. They're feeling rejected and unpopular. And so they are going to go out of their way to try to reverse Megxit and worm their way back into the half in, half out that Queen Elizabeth absolutely said was not an option for them. I believe some of these quotes. Some of these quotes are very compelling about how I don't think he's ever wanted to be estranged from his family. I think when he was madly in love with Meghan, he could be blind enough to choose her. Now things are different and the veil is lifting. Some about how the American dream is just crushed. Even Meghan Markle is feeling defeated by the response in the States. But, Mark, I'll go to you first. Harry's actions contradict this story. The story, I believe, to a point. But when Harry goes on a podcast and curses and is vulgar and almost makes a mockery of the title Duke and the Prince of England, that behavior contradicts this story about a man that's desperate to crawl his way back into the royal family, wouldn't you be on your best behavior if this is something you were pursuing?
You're absolutely right. But I think that Harry's lost his mind. I think he's becoming increasingly irrational. His judgment is just horrible at the moment. If you look at the fact that he brings that court case against the Daily Mail, which was a big mistake because there was no solid evidence, and all 97 claims against the paper were thrown out, which is really unusual. You would expect a couple to be upheld. There was nothing. He then goes on to attack the verdict and therefore effectively attacking the integrity of the judge, Mr. Justice Nicklin, who's the guy that's going to decide whether Harry is on the hook for unlimited legal fees. So his judgment is just not there at the moment. And when we look at these appearances on the Joe Marler podcast and the Fox Sports show with James Corden, it's almost like he's kind of going back to the well of, Harry 2.1, the sort of ex-military beer drinking guy that chased girls, one of the lads, a bit blokey, politically incorrect. Now that's fine because you could argue that might work. Harry was very popular back in the day when he was just this regular fun-loving guy. But as you say, it doesn't fit strategically with his return to the royal fold with remarks about his pubic hair. How does that go down at Buckingham Palace? And I also don't think Meghan's loving it either, guys, because if you look at the Sussex brand, which it's my view that Meghan is the architect of, and Harry just goes along with it because he's her useful idiot. I think the Sussex brand sees itself as a very sort of philanthropic, global leadership. We're the kind of Obama's 2.0. That to me is what the Sussex brand is. It's supposed to be elite level influencer, status, pedigree, position. So I think actually Charles won't like it, King Charles, but I don't think Meghan likes it much either.
Yeah, Charles, we noticed she disappeared during the Spare media tour. When he was having to explain Elizabeth Arden cream and frozen Todgers, she wanted to be nowhere around that. So I agree with Mark that she might not be attracted to whatever version of Harry we're currently getting with whatever strategy this currently is.
Yes, I've read the Daily Mail piece actually more than once because I wanted to really take it all in. I know Alison Boshoff, who's a very, very good journalist, and I have no doubt that some of the quotes that she's got are very good quotes that she's spoken to these people. However, the premise that Harry and Meghan want to come crawling back to the UK is something I don't think is going to happen. Yes, they would love to be half in and half out. That isn't going to happen. William will not allow it. Now, there was some talk in that article about, contacts between Harry and William. I can't see that has happened, any contacts between Harry and William. I mean, if there had been contacts on the day that Harry and Meghan and the kids went to Highgrove, where was Prince William? He was playing polo in Windsor, and he was walking away holding his wife's hand and looking lovingly at each other. They had not got a care in the world. And one of the cares that they didn't have in the world was what was happening at Highgrove. They couldn't have cared less. So, I agree that Harry's American dream is sort of waning, as is his British dream waning. Meghan, I suspect as well, is because of various financial matters that have fallen through, is still going to carry on doing all the stuff that she does. She's there is a suggestion that she wants to repair the damage with the English side of the royal family. Well, she hasn't bothered to repair any damage at all with her own father, who's still, not seen them, still not seen the children, still hasn't met his son-in-law. I mean, it's patently ridiculous, the whole matter. And he's going to come back again in September because he's got to do Well Child. Is Meghan going to come? Are we going to go through this fiasco again of, I'm not coming to London because I don't get the security and all this sort of stuff? I really am getting bored with it. If you want to come, fine. If you don't want to come, don't come. But don't start moaning about it all because it's really starting to get right up my nose.
Well, we don't want to go up your nose.
Sorry,
Mark,
yes.
Mark,
Well, I was going to use another phrase, but I thought
yeah,
that was a more
that's
polite
something
one.
we expect to hear that kind of language on Harry's podcasts. Okay.
You know, it's incredible, Kinsey, right? Because Charles Rae is a total icon of British journalism, and he's been on that royal beat for decades. And even Charles Rae has been triggered by Harry now. Even Charles Rae has had enough.
Exactly. But
I like to think of myself as being a Harry supporter at
Right.
the start. Everything he did for all these charities, whatever he did for the country as a serving soldier was brilliant. And you can't take that away from him. But honestly, everything else is just disgraceful.
it is true. Mark, I believe what Charles is saying as well, that it's a little hard to stomach the idea of Meghan and Harry crawling back to the United Kingdom. But isn't that what this kind of was? In Meghan agreeing to protocol, not having her photo taken, staying under the radar, not live tweeting or live streaming on Instagram from Highgrove, the reunion. I mean, I felt like Meghan actually showing up back in the UK was an admission of failure, was an admission that things weren't going, the way that she'd hoped that they would. Because in my opinion, if Netflix was still beating down their door, if Meet Me at the Lake was the #1 movie on right now, and The Wedding Date was about to premiere and everybody was excited about it, and Harry's Afghanistan movie was coming, coming together wonderfully, and Spotify was still thrilled that Meghan Markle was a partner, I don't think that she would have been in the UK 2 weeks ago. I just simply don't.
You are so right. And the issue is that when things are going well, if things are going well for Meghan in particular, we'll be the first to hear about it. She'll be on Instagram. But that's why we know that the As Ever brand has completely collapsed. And there are reports of tens of thousands of jars of the fruit spread and the flour sprinkles gathering dust at the HQ of Netflix, who, let's not forget, haven't just ditched the main broadcast deal that they had originally, but also tore up the commercial agreement for retail sales. So definitely Meghan's return to the UK is an act of desperation. It's an admission of failure. And don't give me this baloney about, it's about the grandkids, because it's perfectly possible for Charles to meet his grandkids without Meghan being there. And I'd like Charles to have spent time with his grandchildren alone. And I don't think that Harry and Meghan had to be on royal property. That really sticks in the craw that these incredibly cruel people who have been so obnoxious about the family and so damaging should be back on, royal property at Highgrove House, where Charles does his gardening and where there are all those childhood memories. It's such a reward, and I'm sure that William's not happy about that. But what I will say is, okay, allegedly on paper, Meghan has kept her counsel, right? She's kept her side of the deal. There's been no photos and no Instagram posts. But wait a minute. What about hours later, People magazine, which, as we know, is the mouthpiece of the Sussex public relations machine, revealing that Meghan feels very sad about the whole UK return? Well, how do they find out? Are they mind readers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that to me was so insincere, Mark, because there were alternatives. Okay. Like if you remember last year when Harry was at the Well Child Awards, she posted images of Harry with children, with balloon animals, and talked about how proud she was of him. If you were so sad that you weren't able to go to the Birmingham 1-year kickoff, then share a picture of Harry there and say, I'm so proud that my family continues to support these veterans. But the absolute silence, to me, it reflected that she's not proud of her husband and that she doesn't truly believe in these causes. I mean,
of course not. Of course not. She's not. She knows. I mean, we love Invictus. We've said that. The veterans are incredible, but it's a PR vehicle for Harry. And it was an attempt back in the day to rehabilitate him after his Hitler moment. And, you know, my point about People magazine is that they've absolutely scooped the jackpot, haven't they, Charles and Kinsey, by getting back to the UK with the blessing of the king, being offered Buckingham Palace, which they were too late to accept, and then going to Highgrove. So the king's done everything that he could. And the deal was no photos and no posts and no interviews. Well, literally moments later, People magazine are revealing Meghan's innermost thoughts. Mm-hmm. Now, unless they are participating in the paranormal, that story has been gifted to people by the Sussexes. And I would argue that's already the breaking of a promise.
And Charles, Page 6 overheard Prince Harry say in New York a few days later that his dad was doing great, which even I felt like was crossing a line. I would be like, if somebody asked me how my dad was and I just had this super secret meeting with him, I would have just said, it was so great to see him. But I wouldn't go into his health at all. I wouldn't even like try to wave into the conversation of his health, because that's such a sacred thing. Especially the palace hasn't told us, you know, what type of cancer it is. Occasionally he comes out and he says he's doing better, but he is super private about that aspect of his life. And I think it's because you know, he wants to be respected as the reigning monarch and doesn't want for there to be any sort of hint of weakness in this illness. Do you have a reaction to what Mark said?
I disagree with you, Kinsey. I don't think there's anything wrong with Harry saying, you know, my dad's fine. I've got no problems with that at all. He's spoken before about how his father is. He hasn't revealed.
Yeah, he said he didn't know how much longer he had to live.
Yeah, I understand that, which was tactfully stupid, you know, for him to say that. But to be in a conversation, say, yeah, my dad is fine. The world knows that Charles is fighting cancer, so it's not a big secret. But Harry didn't reveal, you know, the type of cancer or any of the details. And it's interesting as well that meeting at Highgrove didn't last more than an hour. It was only an hour-long meeting, you know, from what I've been told. So it wasn't exactly the afternoon in the paddling pool, was it?
Kumbaya. It wasn't a total like healing experience.
I think, Charles, you're right about that. And that's what I've heard too. And it tells us that it was a formal meeting and not quite the welcoming with open arms, you're back.
What I would like to, Mark, is to have been a fly on the wall to have seen the reaction from Camilla to Harry, because obviously he's described her as basically a witch. So you know, and she's not a lady that takes prisoners. To be perfectly honest, she can be quite tough, and it's interesting that she wanted to be by the king's side when that meeting took place, because she wanted to see what was going on and make sure that there was nothing untoward that happened, and that they stuck to the deal, apart from the People magazine quote. But I mean, they stuck largely to the deal. We haven't seen a picture.
I totally agree. Camilla loves Charles so much, doesn't she, Charlie? And I mean, it is notwithstanding the complications of their relationship when Charles and Diana were together, it's a true royal love affair. And, you know, it's got a definite kind of Romeo and Juliet vibe to it. And she's very protective of Charles. And, you know, she's not taking prisoners, as you say. And of course, let's not forget, Charles and Kinsey, that was it the Daily Mail reported that the reason why Camilla was there as well was to be a witness, so that recollections were not able to vary.
Yeah, she would remember everything that was said and was done.
All right, well,
absolutely, I agree.
In case Kinsey, in case they'd have said that the afternoon tea was racist, or the scones were racist, or the clotted cream was racist, or something.
I always say that about
it was racist because it would be white, wouldn't it?
Really quickly, because I've got one of my favorite hosts in the entire world here, Mark Dolan, and a very well-respected journalist in Charles Rae. Oprah accused of backpedaling after revisiting that Meghan Markle interview. So she sits down with Vanity Fair and she's looking over some of her most iconic moments in her career, and they cut to the Meghan Markle interview, which we found out was like 3.5 hours long. Wouldn't you love to comb through every second of that? And she pinpoints the "were you silent or were you silenced" moment, claiming she just wanted to clarify Meghan's meaning to avoid any confusion later. But critics are not buying it. Social media lit up with accusations that Oprah is trying to rewrite history, with many calling it backpedaling. Others questioned why she was so focused on clarifying that moment, but didn't press Meghan on several of the interview's claims that were later challenged or disproven, like, "Oh, I was married days before." Mark, can you rewrite history this way? Why is she not taking accountability? This was a messy interview. It created an unimaginable amount of damage. Remember Harry and Meghan the next day having to ask CBS This Morning to stress that the racists weren't grandma and grandpa? Grandpa's in the hospital. I mean, it was just such a, in my opinion, one of the lowest moments for Oprah Winfrey's career.
Yes, it was a softball interview. It was like a corporate video. It's what I would describe as anti-journalism. And it's amazing that someone of Oprah Winfrey's qualities and pedigree as a broadcaster, let's not forget she's a billionaire as a result of her capacious talents. And I'm certainly a fan, but this has blotted her copybook. She's lost a lot of supporters with that interview. Why? Well, because she presided over a pack of lies and she enabled these two grifters to cause such damage. And no pushback, no probing, no journalism whatsoever. And it's not down to a lack of intelligence. Oprah Winfrey is probably a genius. She's elite level. She's changed the face of American TV. So I don't know what happened. She's been infected with a Meghan mind virus or something. Or is it more simple than that? Is Oprah Winfrey just a very cynical broadcaster that knew that that was the interview to have, let them peddle any old nonsense? She's going to get the viewers. She's going to get huge ratings, massive ad revenue. And now what she does is goes back and effectively apologizes for it. Isn't Oprah being disingenuous, having her cake and eating it? So basically, she pockets the cash, then says sorry later. I think that's what's happened here.
Well, Charles, you know that Oprah was desperate to get an interview with Princess Diana. Like, she even went to visit her at Kensington Palace. I mean, it's my understanding she wanted to sit down with Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, at one point. Harry and Meghan were simply her in. She was close to Fergie. She produced multiple shows for Fergie and did sit downs with Fergie. Meghan and Harry were an in that she'd kind of been like waiting on for years, right?
Yeah, yes, she had been waiting on it for years. And I mean, like Mark, I mean, what Oprah Winfrey did in that interview, and I was staggered to find out there was 3.5 hours of this stuff. I'd love to have seen the 2.5 hours that we didn't see,
right,
on this, because I bet you there's a few more gems in there. I can assure you.
We're waiting for the director's cut, aren't we?
But it was disgraceful because she never challenged Meghan. She just let Meghan spout, the various points that she wanted to make. And as you quite rightly said, Kinsey, in your intro to this segment, that it caused so much damage, within the royal family. We had this terrible guessing game as to who the racist was. We had, I mean, I fell off my chair when she said that she got married 3 days before the multi-million-pound wedding at Windsor. I thought, hang on a second, you can't do that. It's illegal. You can't do that.
We know you've been married before, Meghan, but this is extreme.
But if you're a journalist and someone says something like that, there is a follow-up question. What are the details? What happened? Where did it happen? And it's exactly the same. I don't think at any point did Oprah say which one was the racist.
Right.
It was left to Meghan the day after, as you quite rightly said, to tell CBS it wasn't grandma, it wasn't grandpa. And then, the other things as well, that the one for me where she was saying about the skin color, and that's the reason why he was not going to be a prince, when we know quite well that he is now a prince, and you can only become a prince or a princess if you are the grandchildren of a ruling and reigning monarch, and that's what's happened, and none of this was challenged, and I think it's a disgrace that she is now trying to rewrite her own history. I agree with Mark and everything else. She's a very, very well intelligent, a genius, as Mark says, woman. But this is going to be her Martin Bashir moment in her, great career.
All right. Well, anybody have anything to add before I wrap it up?
Well, I think just on the Oprah interview, it's so devastating because yes, we've got the book Spare, which is full of bitterness and vitriol. And then we had the Harry and Meghan documentary series on Netflix, in which Meghan openly mocked Queen Elizabeth. But I think the real killer, the kicker, was the Oprah interview. And I think Harry and Meghan, ironically, will come to regret doing that. It's that interview, for example, which may prevent William ever forgiving his brother. So, we're going to be talking about that interview for decades to come. And I think the Sussexes will pay a very high price.
Whatever happens in the future, that interview is always going to be brought up. We're always going to have clips from it. We're always going to report from it. It's never going to die. Never.
Yeah. They had no idea what they were doing when it's clear to me that that they are angry and bitter and lashing out and not thinking straight when they're talking throughout that process. And yeah, I absolutely think that they will come to regret it too. Well, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Go follow my friend, Mark Dolan, at the Mark Dolan Show. He's producing plenty of amazing royal content. Every once in a while, you'll see my face over there. Charles Rae, you are a staple here at Royally Unfiltered, and I can't wait to see you again very soon. And you can go online and buy some of Charles Rae's books. I love his book about Princess Diana, so buy that if you haven't. Support my friends. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys again very soon. Bye.
All the best.